to our coverage of the Republican National Convention, such as it is. Everything we've seen tonight thus far has been taped. This will be the first live remarks from the chair of the Republican Party, Ronna Romney McDaniel.
And on behalf of everyone in our party and President Trump, thank you for tuning in as we kick off this historic convention. As we speak to you tonight, we send our thoughts and prayers to those facing terrible fires in California, recovering from storms in Iowa, and preparing for hurricanes in Louisiana and the Gulf Coast. Democrats started their convention last week with Eva Longoria, a famous Hollywood actress who played a housewife on TV. Well, I'm actually a real housewife and a mom from Michigan with two wonderful kids in public school who happens to be the only the second woman in 164 years to run the Republican Party. And unlike Joe Biden, President Trump didn't choose me because I'm a woman. He chose me because I was the best person for the job. 4 years ago, President Trump started a movement unlike any other. And over the next 4 days, we will hear from a few of the millions of hardworking, everyday Americans who have benefited from his leadership. If you watched the DNC last week, you probably noticed that Democrats spent a lot of time talking about how much they despise our president. But we heard very little about their actual policies. Policies that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. Policies like banning fossil fuels, eliminating private health insurance, taxpayer-funded health care for people who come here illegally, and defunding the police. Their argument for Joe Biden boiled down to the fact that they think he's a nice guy. Well, let me tell you, raising taxes on 82% of Americans is not nice. Eliminating 10 million good-paying oil and gas jobs is not nice. Policies that force jobs to flee our country or allow abortion up until the point of birth are not nice. The truth is, there's only one person who has empathized with everyday Americans and actually been fighting for them over the past 4 years, and that is President Donald Trump. In the nearly 4 years I've worked on behalf of President Trump, I've seen up close a man who has a deep love for family, a man who has reverence for the office of the presidency, a man with an incredible respect for law enforcement and our military. I've seen private moments where he comforts Americans in times of pain and sadness. Now, everyone knows he can be tough. He's tough when he takes on China, tough when he works to fix our unfair trade deals, tough when he fights to secure our borders. President Trump is always going to be tough when he is fighting for the American people because nice guys like Joe cared more about countries like China and Iran than the United States of America. Tonight begins a new chapter in the great American story, a story that has inspired the world for generations. And when we re-elect President Trump this November, the best is yet to come. This election is the most important in our lifetime. Your vote counts more than ever. If you want to check your voting status, secure your ballot, or register to vote, text VOTE to 88022. Earlier today, President Trump and Vice President Pence came to North Carolina to thank our delegates for unanimously renominating them to a second term. Our official roll call and the business of our Republican convention was conducted today in Charlotte. We have created a short video to symbolize the excitement for President Trump across all 50 states and territories. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
The great state of Alabama.
Alaska.
American Samoa.
Arizona.
Arkansas.
California.
Colorado.
Connecticut. Delaware. District of Columbia.
Florida. Georgia.
Guam.
Hawaii.
Idaho.
Illinois.
Indiana.
Iowa.
Kansas.
Kentucky. Louisiana.
Maine.
Maryland.
Massachusetts.
Michigan.
Minnesota,
Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska,
Nevada, New Hampshire,
New Jersey,
New Mexico, New York,
the North Carolina,
North Dakota,
the Northern Mariana Islands,
Ohio,
Oklahoma,
Oregon, Pennsylvania, Puerto Rico,
Rhode Island,
South Carolina,
South Dakota,
Tennessee,
United States Virgin Islands,
Utah,
Vermont, Virginia,
Washington, West Virginia,
Wisconsin,
Wyoming. Are excited to nominate
Donald J. Trump, and Vice President Mike Pence
for 4 more years.
Thank you for all you've done to make America great again.
It is our privilege.
to nominate you for 4 more years.
And we know the best is yet to come.
We will make America great again. And ladies and gentlemen of this country, the best is yet to come. I didn't back down from my promises, and I've kept every single one.
This current administration had made hope possible.
We want this nation to continue to be the beacon of hope for the world.
How many people said they're going to leave America if Donald Trump was elected? They're all still here, and they're not going anywhere because we are in the land of the free.
We will never, ever sign bad trade deals. America first again. America first.
America's great USMCA trade bill.
This is a big win for the United States of America. This is a great trade deal.
We are going to lift the restrictions on the production of American energy. We will create millions of more jobs.
Hope to me is the belief in a better tomorrow and creating a better future for our children.
When I look in the eyes of my grandchildren, I want them to know that their papa was not silent.
We will rescue kids from failing schools by helping their parents send them to a safe school of their choice. We will completely rebuild our depleted military. The countries that we are protecting at a massive cost to us will be asked to pay their fair share. We will take care of our great veterans like they have never been taken care of before.
This guy saved me.
Yeah.
He saved me. Thanks to him, I'm here.
To me, he's giving people hope, what he's doing for the poor people, what he's doing for everybody.
We are going to appoint justices of the United States Supreme Court who will uphold our laws and our Constitution.
Why supporting law enforcement is so important for keeping America great.
As long as I'm president, I will never defund your police, that I promise you. It's time to deliver a victory for the American people. We are going to start winning again. It's called Promises Made, Promises Kept.
My name is Amy Ford. I've been a registered nurse for 17 years. I'm from the small town of Williamson, West Virginia, where I've lived my entire life, the daughter of a nurse and a coal miner. Even though I was the youngest of 4 children, I was always somewhat of a caretaker. It came natural for me. So it felt right to follow in my mother's footsteps and become a nurse. And this March, when COVID-19 sent our country into crisis, I knew I had to help any way that I could. I deployed to New York in April and then to San Antonio, Texas, working as a COVID relief nurse in both states. As I contended with the challenges of treating our patients who had their worlds turned upside down, I noticed a positive change in our healthcare system. President Trump recognized the threat this virus presented for all Americans early on and made rapid policy changes. And as a result, telehealth services are now accessible to more than 71 million Americans, including 35 million children. Prior to COVID, telehealth was not covered or reimbursed under Medicare, Medicaid, or CHIP. This left our most vulnerable populations with no other choice but to have an in-person office visit with their physicians, increasing their risk of exposure to COVID-19 exponentially. The expansion of telehealth services has also resulted in the integration of video visits between patients and their families, allowing loved ones to have contact and visualization, as well as a better understanding of care. Telehealth has been essential during this pandemic. I don't want the media taking my personal story and twisting it, so let me be clear. As a healthcare professional, I can tell you without hesitation, Donald Trump's quick action and leadership saved thousands of lives during COVID-19. And the benefits of that response extend far beyond coronavirus. Telehealth will continue to aid many that are just unable to find transportation or a way to the doctor for regular checkups. This is especially true in rural America. I live in a town of about 2,000 people. We do not have buses, trains, trolleys, or Ubers available to us. In addition, the unavailability of services can also hinder treatment for many. So increased access to telehealth for millions of Americans has truly been life-saving, and we have President Trump to thank.
From the very beginning, Democrats, the media, and the World Health Organization got coronavirus wrong. The World Health Organization said authorities have found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission.
Overall, most people should not be terribly concerned about it.
Everything is fine here. We do want to say to people, come to Chinatown. Here we are. Come join us.
We don't even think it's going to be as bad as it was in other countries.
Go about your lives, go about your business.
One leader took decisive action to save lives. President Donald Trump. Banning travel from China and coronavirus epicenters. Biden charged xenophobia. But President Trump was right, signing the CARES Act, providing immediate relief to American families, workers, and businesses, declaring a national emergency, tapping into $42 billion in existing emergency funding, quickly getting crucial personal protective equipment to the states, signing the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, ensuring that American families and businesses impacted by the virus receive the strong support they need, launching Operation Warp Speed to fast-track a vaccine in record time.
He said everything that I could have hoped for. Promise made, promise kept.
He is ready, willing, and able to help.
He has been responsive. He's done a lot of good things.
What the federal government did was a phenomenal accomplishment.
In our hour of need, you all literally are helping us in a big way. We were at the edge, and this is life or death stuff, and we're forever thankful for that.
Soon, we will emerge safer, stronger, and greater than ever.
Just going to break in here for a second as they continue to talk about COVID and the national response to that. I want to bring into the discussion here Dr. Vin Gupta, who's a pulmonary and critical care physician in Seattle and a global health policy expert. MSNBC, we just made a decision to put up on the screen there some context as the speaker claimed that the president's quick action and leadership saved thousands of lives during COVID-19. Obviously, America leads the world in COVID-19 cases and in deaths, and we have one of the worst outbreaks on earth and have for months. Dr. Gupta, let me just ask you, as you're hearing this, what you think people should understand in terms of a bit of a reality check here.
Thanks, Rachel, for the opportunity. You know, a lot of that was hard to listen to. And this is not as a partisan, but as a clinician. Number one, for many weeks in the last 6 months, COVID-19, which we didn't even know existed towards the end of 2019, was the #1 cause of death for Americans. Last week, it was the second leading cause of death for Americans behind ischemic heart disease. So to say that 170,000 souls lost in our country up to now is success by any measure is fantasy. It's disrespectful to the families who've lost loved ones, to frontline clinicians who put their lives at risk. It's just fantasy. It's propaganda. So that's number one. Number two, I would say the reality here is, let's talk about PPE. We had to import insufficient, inadequate PPE, KN95 masks that did not meet any recognizable U.S. standard from China, from other places overseas, because we didn't have enough PPE in our strategic national stockpile. So for all your viewers out there listening to this, for anybody listening to what the RNC is doing right now, it's all propaganda. There's no truth to it. We didn't have enough PPE for our nurses, our respiratory therapists, or our physicians to care for COVID critically ill patients across the country. What about testing? We still don't have enough testing, Rachel. The right type of testing, the rapid point of care tests. That's why we're seeing testing numbers go down. That one of the lowest points has been in weeks. It's about 600,000 new tests a day, down from 900,000 towards the end of July. So that's important to keep in mind as well. And then finally, this notion that telehealth, the nurse that was just speaking about telehealth and progressive policies on telehealth, let me fact check that very quickly. This is, the administration didn't suddenly invent telehealth and telehealth reimbursement strategies in the last few months. That's false. That is absolutely false. Up until the beginning of May, well into this pandemic, you needed a smartphone. You needed broadband internet access to actually communicate with the telehealth provider, someone like me, to order a test for a patient. It wasn't until the middle of May that they loosened restrictions so that you could get a test or you could communicate with the provider by phone. So let's be clear here about what's true, what's not true.
Dr. Gupta, thank you for helping us keep reality in sight here as we continue to watch this program. I think we'll be back with you as the evening progresses. Again, we are watching the first night of what is essentially an RNC TV show produced by the Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee. The convention part of this actually finished up this morning, but we're back into the program. Now we are expecting over the course of this evening culminating speeches by the president's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr. And it looks like the headliner of the evening is going to be South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott. Let's get back to the program now.
When the China virus invaded our country, we launched the greatest mobilization of American society since World War II. Patriots of every race, color, and creed rallied together to defeat the invisible enemy and save the lives of their fellow citizens. Today, our hearts overflow with appreciation for the incredible frontline workers who risk their own health and safety to keep America strong and safe. When crisis came, millions of everyday Americans rose to the challenge. In their actions, we see true greatness of the American character. We always find a way to victory. History will remember and celebrate the heroes of 2020 for as long as our great American flag waves over the land that we love. To every frontline worker, I offer the salute of a nation that is forever in your debt. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. These are my friends. These are the incredible workers that helped us so much with the COVID. We can call it many different things, from China virus. I don't want to go through all the names because some people may get insulted, but that's the way it is. These are great, great people, doctors, nurses, firemen, policemen. We want to thank you all. You have been incredible, and we want to thank you and all of the millions of people that you represent. Thank you all very much. Great job. Thank you. Thank you all very much. So tell me a little about your stories. How about we'll start with you?
I'm a postal worker, delivered to the senior community during COVID-19.
Good. And we're taking good care of our postal workers.
Absolutely.
That I can tell you. Believe me, we're not getting rid of our postal workers. You know, they'd like to sort of put that out there. If anyone does, it's the Democrats, not the Republicans. I want to thank you very much and thank everybody in that whole beautiful post office system. We appreciate it.
How about you?
I'm a trucker.
Good.
Own a small business in Ohio.
Great.
Hauling steel mostly. You know, some of our customers actually made hospital beds with some of the material.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations. I love the truckers. You know, they're on my side.
Thank you, Mr.
I think all of them, frankly. I think pretty much all of them. How about you?
I'm a custodian at the post office as well.
What do you do exactly?
Clean up everybody's mess and everybody's germs and all that.
Can I tell you, that world, that profession will never be out of business. You know that, right?
Sure.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. And how about you?
I'm a registered nurse, President Trump. I work at a New Jersey hospital. It's called Virtual Willingboro Hospital.
Right.
I also represent an organization of professional nurses. It's called the National Association of Catholic Nurses.
Very good.
But I want to tell you, sir, as a nursing supervisor, I am so in awe of your leadership. Honestly, I know many people have said often interesting things, but it takes a true leader to be able to ignore all that stuff and do what is right and not be offended by all the words being said. And you really do show that positive spirit to us. And as nurses, I appreciate that. But just as an individual, I'm grateful for that.
Well, I'm for the nurses. I'm for the doctors. I'm for everybody. We just have to make this China virus go away, and it's happening. Please, go ahead.
I'm also a nurse. I represent Genesis Healthcare, which is a skilled nursing facility company. I want to thank you and your administration for all the supplies and support and funding that you've given the skilled nursing units. Without that, we couldn't do as well as we have done. I spent some time in New Jersey. I live in West Virginia, went to New Jersey and did some work there. And we finally started to see things change and turn around.
I appreciate what you said, because we have delivered billions of dollars of equipment that governors were supposed to give, and in many cases, they didn't get. So the federal government had to help them, and all of the people that did this incredible work, they never got credit for it. But you understand where it came from. Thank you very much. Thank you both. It's really nice. Please, go ahead.
I'm a police officer in Englewood, Colorado, and I contracted COVID in late March and recovered.
That means we don't have to be afraid of you at all. Right?
I'm good to
Once you're recovered, you know, we have the whole thing with plasma happening. That means your blood is very valuable. You know that, right? Thank you very much. Great. Please.
I'm a detention deputy at the Kern County Sheriff Department out in California.
Great.
And I also contracted COVID end of March and recovered from that also.
How long was your problem?
I was sick about 10 days, really bad. I got everything besides a cough, but recovered. I was off work for a month and a half, and I work in our local county jails.
Did they do anything specifically to help you recover?
They gave me Z-Paks medication, cough syrup.
Okay, and I won't even ask you about the hydroxychloroquine, because it's a shame what they've done to that one, but I took it. I took the Z-Pak also, and zinc. I want to thank you all very much. It's an honor to have you in the White House. You're fantastic people, and the people you represent an incredible group of people, and we love you all. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good evening. We're just going to jump in here for another second in terms of some of the president's claims there. Mostly about COVID, but also about the Postal Service. The president talking about his caring about the Postal Service, caring for postal workers, and wanting to take care of them. The reason that's in the news and that's in this Republican show tonight is because of President Trump's Postmaster General recently having instituted changes to the post office that have created real problems, not just threats, but material delays for the mail service all over this country, in terms of people not being able to get their medications on time, live animals that usually get shipped through the mail ending up dead in postal sorting facilities, inside mail packages that didn't get shipped in time. Those changes to delay mail delivery times are things that have happened during the Trump administration. For them to be bragging about taking care of the Postal Service and it's the Democrats who are out to get it is backwards.
And the information has come from within the Postal Service. Whistleblowers inside the Postal Service are letting people know, are crying out and saying, look at these packages, piling up. All over this country, people are suffering, particularly in rural areas. People are desperate to get their Social Security checks, their paychecks, their Medicare. And, I'm struck by the fact that he's doing this caring for frontline workers. It's sort of a version of what Joe Biden did when he would interview real people. But Trump is doing it inside the White House, using it as a set, which I can't hatch out. I mean, I guess he's the only person who can't violate the Hatch Act, so he's doing that. And just using the White House in that way. Again, it's quite monarchical. And no masks on, no masks.
No, they are a little bit apart from one another. Presumably, they all had to be tested to be there. But to that end, one of the people who just told the president that she'd had COVID and she's recovered, the president said to her, then we don't have to be afraid of you then.
Yeah.
The president is advancing their theory of COVID immunity, which is very much in flux in terms of the scientific knowledge. I should also say that the president said, your blood is very valuable. We just did that plasma thing. This, again, also is the president not talking in a way that is copacetic with the science. The White House did pressure the FDA to approve convalescent plasma under emergency use. It's against the recommendation of FDA scientists and the head of the NIH and Dr. Fauci that they did that. There isn't any strong scientific evidence that suggests that convalescent plasma and antibodies actually is a sound therapeutic that's going to be of value for treating people with coronavirus. I should also tell you that the president talked about sending billions of dollars worth of equipment to skilled nursing facilities because the governors wouldn't. The federal government has sent very little in the way of supplies to skilled nursing facilities and long-term care facilities. That is something that has been overpromised and underdelivered and was misconstrued there in the way the president explained that. We hope that we don't have to keep doing this all night. Football great Herschel Walker is up next at the RNC. Let's get back to it.
Most of you know me as a football player, but I'm also a father, a man of faith, and a very good judge of character. I've known Donald Trump for 37 years, and I don't mean just casual ran into him from time to time. I'm talking about a deep personal friendship. I watched him as an owner of a professional football team. Right after he bought the team, he set out to learn. He learned about the history of the team, the players, the coaches, every detail. Then he used what he learned to make the team better. I watched him in the boardroom. He can be in the middle of a big meeting, but if one of the kids was on the phone, he dropped everything to take the call. He taught me that the family should be your top priority. I watched him treat janitors, security guards, and waiters the same way he would treat a VIP. He made them feel special because he knew they were. He understands that they are the people who make this country run. They clean, they cook, they build, they drive, they deliver. He told me, Herschel, make an effort to get to know people. Remember their names. That stuck with me. One time, I planned to take his kids to Disney World with my family. At the last minute, Donald said he'd like to join us. So there he was, in a business suit, on It's a Small World ride. That was something to see. It just shows you what a caring, loving father he is. It hurt my soul to hear the terrible names that people call Donald. The worst one is racist. I take it as a personal insult that people would think I've had a 37-year friendship with a racist. People who think that don't know what they're talking about. Growing up in the Deep South, I've seen racism up close. I know what it is, and it isn't Donald Trump. Just because someone loves and respects the flag, our national anthem, and our country, doesn't mean they don't care about social justice. I care about all those things. So does Donald Trump. He shows how much he cares about social justice in the black community through his actions. And his action speaks louder than stickers or slogans on a jersey. He keeps right on fighting to improve the lives of black Americans and all Americans. He works night and day. He never stops. He leaves nothing on the field. Some people don't like his style, the way he knocks down obstacles that get in the way of his goals. People on the opposing team didn't like when I ran over them either. But that's how you get the job done. I pray every night that God gives him more time. Give him 4 more years. He has accomplished so much almost all by himself on a constant attack. But there's still more work to be done. If you love America and want to make it better, Donald Trump is your president. He's my president, and I'm blessed to call him friend.
Football great Herschel Walker with his personal endorsement of the president. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back on the other side with more of the Republican National Convention-ish.
You can't claim that as a dependent because it's inanimate.
People ask me what sort of a person should become a celebrity accountant, and I tell them, nobody should.
Hey, buddy, what's the damage?
I bought it.
The waterfall.
Nope. My new Volkswagen.
A Volkswagen? I think we're having a breakthrough here.
Welcome to Caesar's Palace. Thank you.
Are you still at risk for a heart attack or stroke? Even if you're on a statin? Statins may lower some risks, but may not be enough. That's why science delivered Vascepa. For people who have persistent cardiovascular risk factors and take a statin, only Vascepa is clinically proven to provide 25% lower risk from heart attack and stroke. Don't take Vascepa if you're allergic to icosapent ethyl or any inactive ingredient in Vascepa. Tell your doctor about any medicines you take and if you are allergic to fish or shellfish. Stop taking Vascepa and seek medical help if you have symptoms of an allergic reaction. Serious side effects may occur, like heart rhythm problems and bleeding. Heart rhythm problems may occur in more people with persistent cardiovascular risk or who have had heart rhythm problems. Tell your doctor if you have symptoms such as irregular beat, lightheadedness, dizziness, shortness of breath, chest discomfort, or fainting. Possible side effects include muscle and joint pain. Proven by science, FDA approved. Vascepa can reduce your risk and add cardio protection. Call your doctor about Vascepa today.
I wanted more from my COPD medicine. That's why I've got the power of 1, 2, 3 medicines with Trelegy.
The only FDA-approved once-daily 3-in-1 COPD treatment.
Trelegy, the power of 1, 2, 3. Trelegy, 1, 2, 3. Trelegy.
With Trelegy and the power of 1, 2, 3, I'm breathing better. Trelegy works 3 ways to open airways, keep them open, and reduce inflammation for 24 hours of better breathing.
Trelegy won't replace a rescue inhaler for sudden breathing problems. Trelegy is not for asthma. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure before taking it. Do not take Trelegy more than prescribed. Trelegy may increase your risk of thrush, pneumonia, and osteoporosis. Call your doctor if worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain occur.
Think your COPD medicine is doing enough? Maybe you should think again.
Ask your doctor about once daily Trelegy. We know times are hard, and we're here for you. Find support at Trelegy.com.
Selling a home is expensive and stressful, so we set out to create a better home selling experience with a network of the most successful real estate agents in America that'll sell your home for as little as a 2% commission.
The icing on the cake with the Ideal Agent was that we saved $12,000 in commission.
They were so stress-free. The whole process was amazing, and I would definitely recommend them.
We are not a discount brokerage. These are top local agents that'll get you the best results.
This is what real food looks like. Fresh, real meat and veggies. The food dogs were built to eat. The Farmer's Dog is changing the way we feed our pets. Visit tryfarmersdog.com to see your dog's personalized meal plan.
Guys, times are tough, but Force Factory's Test X180 can help us man up America by boosting total testosterone, build muscle, fuel desire, and improve performance. Get Test X180 from Force Factor, the #1 fastest growing men's health brand at Walmart.
We're happy to have you here for night one of the Republican National Convention. We are broadcasting this, of course, by choice. However, it is our responsibility to not unquestioningly broadcast potentially dangerous misinformation, especially of the medical variety. That's why we need to bring in, one more time, Dr. Vin Gupta is a pulmonologist and global health policy expert with the University of Washington Medical Center. Dr. Gupta, there is something that the president said a few moments ago that I feel like we need to address in order to be responsible here. The president once again raised the fact that he personally says he took hydroxychloroquine as well as zinc, as well as something called Z-Pak, seeming to suggest that those things may have protected him from getting COVID since he's never known to have had it. I just wanted to ask if you could give our viewers a little bit more context as to what it means and what they should hear when the president brags about taking those drugs.
You bet, Rachel. For all your viewers out there, anybody listening, there is no pill you can take, hydroxychloroquine or azithromycin, an antibiotic, or a vitamin like zinc, to protect you from infection with COVID-19. And what I'll quickly say is that these hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin have been studied amongst inpatients with COVID-19, and actually those that get both of those drugs do worse than if you get nothing at all. So you actually have worse outcomes if you get both drugs versus nothing at all. So we're worried that this could be a harmful regimen. It's why the president should not be making light of it and or joking about it.
Talking about taking it, especially when everybody knows that he hasn't had COVID, or they haven't said publicly that he's had COVID. So he's talking about taking it as essentially a preventative, not even just as a therapeutic, which is essentially inviting people to try to do that themselves, which, again, could be dangerous, which is why we're cutting in and why we're grateful to you, Dr. Gupta. Thank you very much. Again, I hope we do not have to do very much of this tonight, but we will do it when we need to. We're going to go back now to the convention. Georgia State Senator Vernon Jones, who is a Democrat, who has endorsed President Trump, and he's speaking now. Let's listen.
Biden has had 47 years to produce results, but he's been all talk and no action, just like so many of the Democrats who've been making promises to the black voters for decades. We've been their captive audience. When President Trump sought to earn the black vote, the Democratic Party leaders went crazy. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer literally started wearing kente cloths around the U.S. Capitol, as if pandering were enough to keep us satisfied. Let me tell you why I'm supporting our president. I grew up in the South, in Laurel Hill, North Carolina, Scotland County, the Green Pond community to be exact. My parents, Robin and Rufus Jones, built with their own hands a 4-room cinder block home with no indoor plumbing. They had very limited education, but they instilled in us a strong work ethic that drove me from those tobacco fields of North Carolina to those hallowed halls of the Georgia General Assembly. My parents taught me if I believed in God, worked hard, and treated every person fairly, there was no limit to what we could achieve. I attended North Carolina Central University, an historical black college. For generations, HBCUs have been the incubators that develop black scholars in math and science and religion, engineering, and politics. They have been important springboards for the black success. But Democrats haven't treated them that way. When President Trump took office, he changed everything. He delivered historic funding to HBCUs, and he guaranteed it for 10 years, something that's never happened in the history of this country. That gave our HBCUs stability, the chance to grow, and produce the next generation of black leaders. That's right, Donald Trump did that. He's also supported school choice to ensure that no child, no matter their race or zip code, is left behind. Every child should have access to a quality education. But education is just the beginning. The president also built the most inclusive economy ever, with record low unemployment for African Americans and record high participation in the workforce. He put opportunity zones in the Trump tax bill that would drive investment into our communities for decades to come. He put the interests of American workers, and especially black workers, first. That's right, Donald Trump did that. He delivered historic criminal justice reform. He ended once and for all the policy of incarceration of black people, which has decimated our communities, caused by no other than Joe Biden. Democrats wouldn't do it, Obama didn't want to do it, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris definitely wouldn't do it. But Donald Trump did it. He's also working every day to make our communities safer. As a former executive of DeKalb County, Georgia, I directed one of the largest public safety departments in the Southeast. I've seen tragic shootings on both sides, officers killing citizens and citizens killing officers in the line of duty. Police officers are our fellow citizens. They live in our country. They have families too. They live in our communities. Unfortunately, Democrats have turned their backs on our brave police officers. They call it defunding. And it's a danger to our cities, our neighborhoods, and our children. Isn't it ironic that Democrat politicians have personal security to protect them? So why don't they forego their security and replace them with social workers, especially since that's what they want for you and me? Our police need more funding, not less, for frequent psychological examinations, for non-lethal remote restraint technology, and for more de-escalation and use of force training. These are the common sense solutions that President Trump supports. True, sincere police reform. That's right. Donald Trump did that too. Education, jobs, safety, security, on issue after issue. And in just a single term, he destroyed these negative forces that have victimized the black community for decades. He gave us the opportunity to rise. Now, you know, when I made the public announcement of my support for President Trump, all hell broke loose. I was threatened, called an embarrassment, and asked to resign by my own party. Unfortunately, that's consistent with the Democratic Party and how they view independent thinking black men and women. But I'm here to tell you that black voices are becoming more woke and louder than ever. The Democratic Party has become infected with a pandemic of intolerance, bigotry, socialism, anti-law enforcement bias, and a dangerous tolerance for people who attack others, destroy their property, and terrorize our own communities. That's what this election is all about. And that's why right now, more than ever before, America needs Donald Trump in the Oval Office for another 4 years. God bless you, and vote Donald J. Trump. Thank you.
In 2018, a gunman walked into Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and changed my life forever. My name is Andrew Pollack. His name isn't worth saying. One of the seniors walking in the hallways that day was my beautiful daughter, Meadow. She was just months away from graduating and beginning a new life. We were so proud of the woman she had become. But in the hallway on that third floor, the gunman saw Meadow and shot her down the hallway, hitting her 4 times. After she was shot and on the floor, she crawled over to another student, a freshman girl, to protect her. She draped her body over her, and then the scumbag gunman shot my daughter at point-blank range 5 more times, killing Meadow and the girl she was shielding. She had a whole life ahead of her, and in that life, she could have done anything and been anything. So many moments that I waited so long for were taken from me. I didn't get to drop her off at college. I didn't get to walk her down the aisle. But every moment was taken from her, and for what? I never wanted this to become a political spectacle, but it did. I never wanted to meet the president like this, but I did. I was invited to the White House. The truth is, I had just buried my daughter that week. I really wasn't interested in public events like a tour or a photo op. I was interested in answers and solutions. So if the president wanted to meet me personally, I said I'd go. They said, of course, that was his plan. At the White House, my family and I sat with the president in the Oval Office and told him about Meadow. I told him what we knew. I told him that his administration needed to take a closer look at what went wrong and why. And I got to see who President Trump really is. He's a good man and a great listener, and he cuts through the BS. Then the president did what he said he would do. He took action. He formed a school safety commission that issued dozens of recommendations to make schools safer. But I'll bet you never heard about that. Instead, the media turned my daughter's murder into a coordinated attack on President Trump, Republicans, and our Second Amendment. In fact, when President Trump asked me and other parents of children that were murdered in school shootings to join him as he announced the commission's findings, the media's first question wasn't about protecting kids. Shockingly, they asked about the government shutdown. President Trump turned to me appalled and said, "Andy, can you believe these people? We're trying to talk about school safety, and this is what they do." But I could believe it. After my daughter's murder, the media didn't seem interested in the facts, so I found them myself. I learned that gun control laws didn't fail my daughter. People did. The gunman had threatened to kill his classmates before. He had threatened to rape them. He had threatened to shoot up the school. Every red flag you could imagine. But the school didn't just miss these red flags. They knowingly ignored them. Far-left Democrats in our school district made this shooting possible because they implemented something they called restorative justice. This policy, which really just blames teachers for students' failures, puts kids and teachers at risk and makes shootings more likely. But it was billed as a pioneering approach to discipline and safety. I was just fine with the old approach to discipline and safety. It was called discipline and safety. But the Obama-Biden administration took Parkland's bad policies and forced them into schools across America. When President Trump rescinded Obama's guidance on restorative justice policies, he put an end to that. And that meant the world to me. It's hard to tell how much Mr. Biden understands about what happened at Parkland. Mr. Biden has campaigned on bringing back restorative justice as part of his unity platform with Bernie Sanders and has pledged to implement it in school districts across America. But he doesn't even seem to know when the shooting happened. He said that he was vice president when it happened, but he wasn't. Mr. Biden may not know when my daughter was murdered, but I do. February 14, 2018. Mr. Biden may not know that these policies make shootings more likely, but I do. Mr. Biden may not know who was vice president that day, but I do. It wasn't Joe Biden. It was Mike Pence. Thank God. And I know who the president was, too. It wasn't Barack Obama. It was President Donald J. Trump, and he took action. I truly believe the safety of our kids depends on whether this man is reelected. I hope you'll join me in helping to make that happen. Mr. President, myself and millions of Americans appreciate you and love you. God bless America, and God bless our president, Donald J. Trump. Thank you.
A curfew now in effect for the city of St. Louis.
Protests in St. Louis turned violent.
Mark McCloskey says he and his family have been threatened with violence.
Under Missouri law, you have a right to defend your home and the lives of your family.
A search warrant has been executed at the home of Mark and Patricia McCloskey.
The husband and wife attorneys charged with pointing guns at protesters.
They were simply trying to protect their home.
Good evening, America. We are Mark and Patty McCloskey. We're speaking to you tonight from St. Louis, Missouri, where just weeks ago you may have seen us defending our home as a mob of protesters descended on our neighborhood.
America is such a great country that not only do you have the right to own a gun and use it to defend yourself, but thousands of Americans will offer you free advice on how to use it. At least that's what we experienced. What you saw happen to us could just as easily happen to any of you who are watching from quiet neighborhoods around our country. And that's what we want to speak to you about tonight.
That's exactly right. Whether it's the defunding of police, ending cash bail so criminals can be released back out on the streets the same day to riot again, or encouraging anarchy and chaos on our streets, it seems as if the Democrats no longer view the government's job as protecting honest citizens from criminals, but rather protecting criminals from honest citizens. Not a single person in the out-of-control mob you saw at our house was charged with a crime. But you know who was? We were. They've actually charged us with felonies for daring to defend our home. On top of that, consider this. The Marxist liberal activist leading the mob to our neighborhood stood outside our home with a bullhorn screaming, "You can't stop the revolution." just weeks later, that same Marxist activist won the Democrat nomination to hold a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. In the city of St. Louis, that's the same as winning the general election. That Marxist revolutionary is now going to be the Congresswoman from the 1st District of Missouri. These radicals are not content with marching in the streets. They want to walk the halls of Congress. They want to take over. They want power. This is Joe Biden's party. These are the people who will be in charge of your future and the future of your children.
They're not satisfied with spreading the chaos and violence into our communities. They want to abolish the suburbs altogether by ending single-family home zoning. This forced rezoning would bring crime, lawlessness, and low-quality apartments into now thriving suburban neighborhoods. President Trump smartly ended this government overreach, but Joe Biden wants to bring it back. These are the policies that are coming to a neighborhood near you. So make no mistake, no matter where you live, your family will not be safe in the radical Democrats' America.
At this moment in history, if you stand up for yourself and for the values our country was founded on, the mob, spurred on by their allies in the media, will try to destroy you. You've seen us on your TV screens and Twitter feeds. You know that we're not the kind of people who back down. Thankfully, neither is Donald Trump. President Trump will defend the God-given right of every American to protect their homes and their families. But more than that, Trump's vision for America is a country where you have an opportunity to work hard and build the life you dream of with a job you love, with your children being educated in great schools, in a community where your family can play in the back church without shame and express your beliefs without retribution. Trump brought us the greatest economy our country had ever seen. The Democrats have brought us nothing but destruction.
When we don't have basic safety and security in our communities, we'll never be free to build a brighter future for ourselves, for our children, or for our country. That's what's at stake in this election, and that's why we must re-elect Donald Trump. God bless you. God bless the president.
And God bless these United States.
That was the McCloskeys. Here to help us digest some of the blatantly false things they had to say there is our friend Claire McCaskill, who also hails from the great state of Missouri. Claire, what'd you think? Claire, we're going to... there you are. Start over, Claire.
Let's start with I really don't know where to start, but let me start with the law. In Missouri, you can sit on your front porch with a gun and watch a parade go by. But if you get up off your porch and you go down and start waving the gun and pointing it to people in the parade, that's called brandishing. Now, substitute peaceful protesters walking in the street for a parade, and the same law applies. So the jury's question will be, was their fear reasonable? And, the facts are in dispute, but we do know this. We know that they brought the guns out and the people were not on their property. They were in the street and on the sidewalks. We know that this is not a private street because you can drive in on these streets anytime you want. And so it is really, and the other thing you should know about these people, they've sued everyone and their brother for their entire legal careers, their neighbors, their employers, their tenants. They even destroyed a beehive of the Jewish children at the Jewish temple next door because they thought it was too close to their property. Took an axe out. These children had a beehive so they could make honey for Rosh Hashanah. That's the kind of guys these folks are. In addition, they own thousands of dollars of back taxes. So that's the McCloskeys.
Claire, can I just ask you, is there a distance between what they just explained about their case and what their lawyers have maintained in court about their case?
Well, they really haven't been to court, and the prosecutors already offered them diversion, saying that if they would just acknowledge they brandished the gun when they were not in reasonable fear, Were they in reasonable fear because there were a lot of Black people walking down their street? They knew where they were going. They knew they were going to the mayor's house around the corner. They know the mayor lives in their neighborhood. It was all over the news that this group was going to be protesting the mayor. So this wasn't as if this was a big surprise that these protesters were in their neighborhood. So the issue really is, will a jury agree? If they decide to contest this, will a jury agree that they were in reasonable fear from peaceful protesters walking down the street?
Senator Claire McCaskill of the great state of Missouri, former Missouri senator. Importantly tonight, Missouri District Attorney. Claire, thank you. I imagine we will be coming back to you over the course of the evening. Again, we are not trying to do, live analysis as this is rolling out, but we do feel a responsibility to make sure that we are not unquestioningly broadcasting things that are both that are false, that are deliberately false, and that are potentially dangerously false. To that end, we also want to bring in our colleague, Trymaine Lee, MSNBC correspondent, the host of the Into America podcast. Trymaine, I wanted to ask you about a claim that we just heard, again, from Mark and Patty McCloskey. They want to, about Democrats, they are not satisfied with spreading the chaos and violence into our communities. They want to abolish the suburbs altogether. The idea that the Democratic Party wants to abolish the suburbs, what is the accusation there that they're actually making, and what is the reality?
So as the McCloskeys mentioned, they said Donald Trump had repealed laws that would allow multifamily dwellings in the suburbs, which were an effort decades long to try to desegregate the suburbs. Because as we know, like deed of covenants and all these kind of things that were put in place in housing policy to make sure to maintain segregation. So the accusation is that, Joe Biden, the Democrats, will come in and once again desegregate the suburbs. And I want to go back to one other thing that the McCloskeys mentioned. They painted this picture of the Democrats wanting to allow criminals and ne'er-do-wells to run the streets. They actually benefited from Kim Gardner, the circuit attorney, her reformist policy. And so because they were convicted of a felony, under many other circumstances, they would have been ordered to surrender for arrest. But they were now eligible for a diversion program because so many times in cities like St. Louis and across the country, they say you're a nonviolent first-time offender, you shouldn't do time. And so everything we heard, painting this dystopian picture of Democrats hoping to usher in the end to the suburbs, which means the end of the dream, the end of the white dream, ushering in Black and brown and poor people to end the dream as we know it, where criminals will run amok. Meanwhile, the most cynical among us might say, of course, the Trump administration, perhaps the first in history, would have speakers under indictment speak at the opening night of the convention. But this is a different world we live in.
I would like to have a long conversation with you about these private streets in places like St. Louis with restrictive covenants where Black people are not allowed to live. But I'm gonna move on, go back to the presentation on HBCUs. I remember that you and our good friend Stephanie Cargill did a whole piece on HBCUs. This claim that Donald Trump rescued HBCUs is made a lot. It's made as their target to Black voters. Walk us through the reality of that. I know that there is a piece of legislation called the Futures Act that passed, and Donald Trump signed it in December of 2019. But Donald Trump didn't write it. He signed it. It was a bipartisan bill, Democrats and Republicans. But beyond signing the Futures Act, which gave a lot of money for STEM to HBCUs, and about 85 million of it went to HBCUs specifically, what has Donald Trump done for HBCUs that's so special that makes him the savior in his mind?
There really hasn't been much in the way of saving or rescuing HBCUs. There's long been this relationship from the beginning of the Reconstruction era when many of these historically Black colleges and universities were established. This relationship, Howard University actually has a more of a binding relationship with the federal government than many others. But there isn't much special. When you think about his kind of support, not unlike many other presidents for HBCUs, and then the First Step Act, which was actually enacted, the Obama administration attempted to get it through, but it was blocked through Congress, signing that bill which allowed some prisoners early release and the HBCUs. That's the go-to favorite from many Black Republicans especially, but many others who say, here he is rescuing Black people, he's not the enemy, when in fact there isn't anything necessarily remarkable about his record with HBCUs in particular.
And just very quickly, he has made this statement over and over again that before he signed that bill, the Futures Act, HBCUs were going to go out, as if these 100-plus year institutions were going to go out of business. Is it true that HBCUs would have gone literally out of business were it not for Donald Trump? Because that's what he's claiming.
That is without question not true, but with a bit of a caveat. All HBCUs are not on equal footing in terms of the funding they get from private donorships or their relationship with the federal government. There have been some HBCUs who have long struggled, really storied institutions, Bethune-Cookman and so many others who have struggled. But the idea that without the signing of his signature on that paper, that the collapse of these storied institutions like Howard and Spelman and my wife's Southern University, Morehouse, would have just gone crumbling into the ether is just a falsity.
Thank you. Thanks,
Trymaine Lee. It's good to have you with us again. We're dipping in and out of coverage tonight when things are being said that aren't factually backed up and that potentially have major implications. We hope to not have to do too much of that over the course of this evening. We're going to get back now. The number 3 Republican in the House, Steve Scalise, is speaking. Congressman Scalise of Louisiana. Let's listen.
In America to leave to our children and grandchildren without those brave law enforcement officers and first responders. Joe Biden's made a career in Washington for 47 years, promising things he's never delivered. In just 3 short years, President Trump has delivered huge wins for American families. While Joe Biden made hollow promises when he chaired the Senate Judiciary Committee, Donald Trump took action and delivered criminal justice reform. Joe Biden claims to care about the working man, but millions of good manufacturing jobs were shipped overseas during the Obama-Biden years to countries like China. Donald Trump brought those jobs back. I've seen how deeply President Trump cares about rebuilding our evaporating middle class. President Trump pledged to give the forgotten men and women of America a real shot at the American dream. And again, he delivered. The lowest unemployment rate in over 50 years, women creating small businesses at record pace, wages rising, the fastest, by the way, for lowest income levels. What can Joe Biden say to that? What has Joe Biden done in his 47 years in Washington that can compare to that? President Trump has delivered for the hardworking people of this great nation. It's going to take that kind of bold leadership to get us out of this COVID crisis. After President Trump saved lives by shutting down flights from China and Europe, he's now focusing the full weight of the government on a revolutionary plan to cure this virus by cutting red tape and empowering scientists to create a vaccine. This is visionary leadership in action at a time when we can't afford another 47 years of hollow promises. America's been through tough times before. Who better to lead us out of these times than the president who already built the strongest economy our country has ever seen? Donald Trump did it before. Donald Trump will deliver for us again. God bless you, and God bless these United States of America.
I'm Sean Parnell, and it is an honor to be here. In 2006, the Army sent me to Afghanistan as a young platoon leader, placed in command of Americans from every corner of our planet. Our platoon reflected the diversity of our nation, every race, creed, and religion. Despite those differences, we were bound together as brothers from the same American family. On June 10, 2006, our platoon was attacked just after dawn. Outnumbered 10-1, we endured mortar and machine gun fire as hundreds of Taliban charged us from 3 sides. We had 24 men that day. Wave after wave of Taliban advanced up the hill. I was wounded 3 times in the fighting. Nearly all of my platoon was wounded within the first minute, but the enemy kept coming. We fought to our last rounds of ammunition, and when it was over, we held the hill. In the face of death, I saw ordinary Americans become heroes. In our darkest hour, when our survival depended on each other, my men and I learned an important lesson. We all bleed red. Our differences did not define us. United, we were unbeatable. After 485 days of combat, I came home eager to enjoy the freedoms I risked my life to defend. But I watched with alarm as the party of my grandfather, a lifelong Union Democrat, turned against the very people it professed to represent. I watched as Joe Biden spit venom at an auto worker who dared to question Joe's intent to dismantle the Second Amendment and take your guns. Where Democrats once stood for hard-working, law-abiding Americans who displayed our flag with pride, this new Democrat Party considers these people uneducated racists clinging to guns and Bibles. The party of Harry Truman became the party of hedge fund managers, Hollywood celebrities, tech moguls, and university professors, all bloated with contempt for middle America. I look across the aisle and I do not see a party that wants you to pursue your dreams. I see a Democrat Party that wants to dictate what those dreams are. I don't see a party that wants you to be free. I see a party that wants to chain you to conformity and will destroy anyone they deem a heretic. I swore an oath to defend my country and its Constitution. President Trump has sworn to do the same. That's why he's advanced freedom, despite savage political attacks, to overcome the agenda of the radical left. President Trump has unleashed the economic might of this nation like no other president in our history. He triggered the rising tide of working families, brought us energy independence, reclaimed jobs from overseas that, Democrats said would never return. He has fiercely defended the besieged First and Second Amendments. That is just a start. With 4 more years, imagine what we can achieve by simply working with our president. I believe in our president's vision for the future. I stand here tonight calling on all Americans to join us. It doesn't matter what you look like, who you love, how you worship your gender or your job. If you're a traditional Democrat who's become disillusioned with how radical your party has become, then stand with us. You are most welcome. America needs all her patriots to rush to her defense. My fellow Americans, I promise you this. In our tent, you are free. Free to speak the truth, choose your journey, define your life. You have the power to go as far as you aim, then aim higher and keep going, because that is what Americans do. We are idealists and dreamers, lovers of adventure. We're rugged and independent. We don't make excuses. We make the impossible a reality. Think about it. In a century, we went from ground-bound dreamers gazing to the stars to doers who created the means to reach them. This is not the time to stand on the sidelines. If you love our country as we do, as our president does, join the chorus of patriot voices that will preserve this exceptional union. Mr. President, lead the way. Millions in our American family believe in this path to destiny. Guide us to that horizon. Thank you, and may God bless the United States of America.
We come together to imagine a future determined by the shining light of our hopes and values and faith. A country where we are judged by our character with dignity and respect for all. The belief that all are created equal, that lives matter irrespective of race, creed, or color. Committed to excelling beyond our dreams. 4 years ago, we faced an historic crossroad. Career politicians promising change every election, but delivering emptiness. We chose a different path. A man who is not a politician. A man who cares. A man who works tirelessly for you. Still, politicians spun their deceptions and obstructed progress, fanning the flames of lawlessness. We all know that it is easy to criticize. It takes a true leader to solve problems. COVID-19, while others criticize without solutions. President Trump's swift action saved lives. And as leading Democrats want to keep businesses closed down, our president is leading the way for a full economic recovery. We are America. We as Americans work together to overcome challenges, write our own stories. America, land of promise, land of opportunity, land of heroes, land of greatness. I thought I had been forgotten. I nearly gave up hope. I was so afraid. I believed I would die here.
American hostages, forgotten and wasting away in far-off prisons, wrongfully detained by foreign governments. Americans were beaten, abused, starved, and left for dead. Until President Donald Trump stepped in.
The 3 American hostages finally back on U.S. soil after being held captive in North Korea.
We're following some breaking news in Turkey where an American pastor, Andrew Brunson, has been released.
An American jailed in Egypt is back in the U.S. this morning after an intervention by the Trump administration.
A tough and skilled negotiator, President Trump successfully won the release of detainees and prisoners, among the most of any president in American history. While families waited in despair for news of their loved ones, President Trump provided a new spark of hope by bringing our hostages home.
We have Danny Burch back home where he should be. He was in Yemen in a very horrible situation. Yesterday, the United States government secured the release of Caitlin Coleman, Joshua Boyle, and their 3 children. Today, we are bringing home another American citizen. We just had news that Turkey released a prisoner that we were trying to get to the United States.
Under this administration, America has not and will not turn its back on our people. President Trump will bring them home.
Diplomacy, negotiation skills, perseverance, faith. The ingredients of hope when there is no hope. No American should ever be left behind. Priority, freeing American hostages.
We have 6 incredible people who were held hostage by various countries. And I'm very pleased to let everybody know that we brought back over 50 hostages from 22 different countries. We worked very hard on it, Ambassador O'Brien and others. And I will tell you, we're very proud of the job we did. But I'd like to ask maybe Pastor Brunson to say a few words so we can go through and just give us a little history of what happened and how is life treating you?
I was held in Turkey for 2 years, and you took unprecedented steps, actually, to secure my release, and your administration really fought for me. And I think if you hadn't done that, I may still be in Turkey. So I'm very grateful.
28 years, right? They had you there they had you scheduled for a long time, Andrew.
Yes.
We had to get you back. And I have to say that, to me, President Erdogan was very good. And I know they had you scheduled for a long time, and you were a very innocent person. And he ultimately, after we had a few conversations, he agreed. So we appreciate that, and we appreciate the people of Turkey. And you still appreciate the people of Turkey, I understand, right?
We love the Turkish people. We still
do. That's great. It's great to have you back, Andrew. Thank you. Please.
Mr. President, thank you for having me. My name is Sam Goodwin. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I was held in Syria for 63 days, and I think I speak for my fellow former hostages and detainees here when I say I'm as grateful as I've ever been for anything to be home safely. And thank you for the invitation and opportunity to be here. Particularly, Ambassador O'Brien was incredibly supportive and helpful to my family, and can't say enough nice things about him. Thank you for promoting him. Good. And just really happy to be here. So thank you.
We got you back.
You got me back, yeah.
We got you all back, and we have some more that we're working on right now to get back that we better do. Please, go ahead.
My name is Michael White, Mr. President. I do, once again, it's an honor to be here, honor to meet you in person. Basically, what had happened with me is I traveled over to the country of Iran. It turned out it was a major trap, and I was apprehended there. I went through a lot in their injustice system, in the Iranian justice system. Iran is an oppressive, extortionist, terrorist regime. You know what I'm talking about. But what you did, sir, is you were able to get me out of that prison in record time. It was amazing.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you,
really
Mr. President. The honor's all mine.
Please.
Yeah, my name is Josh Holt. This is my wife, Tammy.
Yes.
We were held hostage in Venezuela for 2 years.
I know very well.
And you helped us get out. Senator Hatch worked with you very well on that as well. And it was a great honor to be able to meet you right when we got back. And I remember a lot of people asking me, what was it like meeting President Trump? And I just say I was blown away. I had just gotten released after 2 years. Then I'm shaking the hand of the president in the Oval Office. So I don't really remember a whole lot of it. So it's nice to meet you again. And it's been great. It's been great to be back, helping people through situations that they've gone through. And now we have started our family.
Well, the great people of Utah really wanted me to do something about the two of you, and we were able to do it. And a little bit of a miracle, I think, frankly.
It was.
Because that was a very hostile period. And we appreciate everybody working so hard with us, but we were able to get you both back. And are you living in Utah now, I hope?
We're still living in Utah.
That's good. We'll say hello to the folks in Utah because they're great people. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Please.
I'm Brian Aaron. Spent an unexpected trip there in India. I was not going to India. I was going through India to Nepal, where I've been working for the last 18 years. But on behalf of my family and myself, thank you, President Trump, for getting us out and getting us home. The darkest moment of our whole time together, your letter to my wife came. And it really gave her the hope and the peace. And
that's great.
From that time forward, as more people got involved, especially the ambassador there in India, things became more peaceful, and the hope was there for the last 4 months that we really would get to come home, because they had planned on keeping me for 3 to 5 years. The original charge thing was 3 to 5 years, right, and that was cleared, and then they came up with new charges to do a 7-year term.
Well, India responded very well to my request. Good. So we appreciate that.
And I appreciate everything y'all did.
Thank you all for being with us. We have a few more people we want to get back, and we will get them back, and they'll be back very soon. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great stories.
Hello, my name is Maximo Alvarez. I live in Miami, Florida, not far from the state of Florida, which is in just a 90-mile wide blue strip on a map for me. It divides freedom from fear. It divides the past from the present, from the future. I know all about the past. I'll never forget my own. My family has fled totalitarianism and communism more than once. First my dad from Spain, then from Cuba. But my families don't run away. By the grace of God, I live the American dream, the greatest blessing I ever had. My dad, who only had a 6th grade education, told me, don't lose this place. You'll never be as lucky as me. I'm speaking to you today because my family is done abandoning what we rightfully earned. There's no place to hide. I'm speaking to you today because President Trump may not always be politically correct. He's in fact a successful businessman, not your average career politician. Our president is just another family man, a friend, and most important, our elected commander-in-chief who puts America first. Keep in mind, the other guy running for president is mostly concerned about power. Yes, power for them, but not for the benefit of all Americans. I'm speaking to you today because I have seen people like this before. I've seen movements like this before. I've seen ideas like this before. And I am here to tell you, we cannot let them take over our country. I heard the promises of Fidel Castro, and I can never forget all those who grew up around me, who look like me, who suffered and starved and died because they believed those empty promises. They swallowed the communist poison pill. If you have a chance, go to the Freedom Tower in Miami. Stop and listen. You can still hear the sounds of those broken promises. It is the sound of waves in the ocean carrying families clinging to pieces of wood. families with children who can't swim, but willing to risk everything to reach this blessed land. It is the sound of tears hitting the paper of an application to become an American citizen. Most heard and liked the promises, but soon after, they experienced the reality. Look at them, listen to them, learn the truth. Those false promises: spread the wealth, free education, free health care, defund the police, trust the socialist state more than your family and your community. They don't sound radical to my ears. They sound familiar. And Fidel Castro was asked if he was a communist. He said he was a Roman Catholic. He knew he had to hide the truth. But the country I was born in is gone, totally destroyed. When I watch the news in Seattle, Chicago, Portland, and other cities, when I see the history being rewritten, when I hear the promises, I've heard echoes of the former life I never wanted to hear again. I see shadows I thought I had outrun. My parents only wanted one person to decide my fate: me. Not some party member, not some government official, not some bureaucrat. In America, I would decide my own future. I am so grateful to America, the place where I was able to build my American dream through hard work and determination. President Trump knows that the American story was written by people just like you and I, who love our country and take risks to build a future for our families and neighbors. I may be a Cuban-born, but I am 100% American. This is the greatest country in the world. And I said this before: if I gave away everything that I have today, it would not equal 1% of what I was given when I came to this great country of ours. The gift of freedom. Right now, it is up to us to decide our fate and to choose freedom over oppression. President Trump, he's fighting the forces of anarchy and communism. And I know he will continue to do just that. And what about his opponent and the rest of the DC swamp? I have no doubt they will hand the country over to those dangerous forces. You and I will decide. And here's what I've decided. My decision is very easy. I choose President Trump because I choose America. I choose freedom. I still hear my dad. There is no other place to go. Thank you, and may the good Lord bless America.
Emotional remarks there from Maximo Alvarez, Cuban-American, talking about his family experience. They're going to just be playing a quick video here that doesn't have real content, is the only way to say that. But we just wanted to interject about a couple of things that have been said over the last few minutes that are just factually inaccurate. And some of them will obviously be factually inaccurate to do. The claim just made by Congressman Steve Scalise that we have the lowest unemployment rate in over 50 years. We actually have the highest unemployment rate since the Great Depression, which everybody knows, but you go with what you got. Also, the claim from Representative Scalise, and we're checking this now, sort of giving you a reality check on this now, just because it's been made. This claim has been made multiple times over the course of the evening. Representative Scalise said it most clearly, Joe Biden has embraced the left's insane mission to defund the police. Whatever you think about the defund the police idea, Joe Biden has absolutely not embraced it. He has not endorsed it at all, even though that's been said multiple times this evening. Also on COVID, remarkable repeated claims that the president's China travel ban saved thousands and thousands, if not millions of lives when he put that in place. It should be noted that about 40,000 people came to this country on planes from China in the 2 months after he put that ban in place. Again, context. We're going to dip back in now. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is speaking. This is one of the few live speeches of the night. This one's not on tape, unlike everything else, just about everything else you've seen.
The Republican president she served, and she called out his Democratic opponent, a former vice president from a failed administration. That ambassador said, and I quote, "Democrats always blame America first." The year was 1984. The president was Ronald Reagan. And Ambassador Jeane Kirkpatrick's words are just as true today. Joe Biden and the Democrats are still blaming America first. Donald Trump has always put America first, and he has earned 4 more years as president. It was an honor of a lifetime to serve as the United States ambassador to the United Nations. Now, the UN is not for the faint of heart. It's a place where dictators, murderers, and thieves denounce America and then put their hands out and demand that we pay their bills. Well, President Trump put an end to all of that. With his leadership, we did what Barack Obama and Joe Biden refused to do. We stood up for America, and we stood against our enemies. Obama and Biden let North Korea threaten America. President Trump rejected that weakness, and we passed the toughest sanctions on North Korea in history. Obama and Biden let Iran get away with murder and literally sent them a plane full of cash. President Trump did the right thing and ripped up the Iran nuclear deal. Obama and Biden led the United Nations to denounce our friend and ally, Israel. President Trump moved our embassy to Jerusalem, and when the UN tried to condemn us, I was proud to cast the American veto. This president has a record of strength and success. The former vice president has a record of weakness and failure. Joe Biden is good for Iran and ISIS, great for communist China, and he's a godsend to everyone who wants America to apologize, abstain, and abandon our values. Donald Trump takes a different approach. He's tough on China, and he took on ISIS and won. And he tells the world what it needs to hear. At home, the president is the clear choice on jobs and the economy. He's moved America forward, while Joe Biden has held America back. When Joe was VP, I was governor of the great state of South Carolina. We had a pretty good run. Manufacturers of all kinds flocked to our state from overseas, creating tens of thousands of American jobs. People were referring to South Carolina as the beast of the Southeast, which I loved. Everything we did happened in spite of Joe Biden and his old boss. We cut taxes, they raised them. We slashed red tape, they piled on more mandates. And when we brought in good-paying jobs, Biden and Obama sued us. I fought back, and they gave up. A Biden-Harris administration would be much, much worse. Last time, Joe's boss was Obama. This time, it would be Pelosi, Sanders, and the squad. Their vision for America is socialism, and we know that socialism has failed everywhere. They want to tell Americans how to live and what to think. They want a government takeover of health care. They want to ban fracking and kill millions of jobs. They want massive tax hikes on working families. Joe Biden and the socialist left would be a disaster for our economy. But President Trump is leading a new era of opportunity. Before Communist China gave us the coronavirus, we were breaking economic records left and right. The pandemic has set us back, but not for long. President Trump brought our economy back before, and he will bring it back again. There's one more important area where our president is right. He knows that political correctness and cancel culture are dangerous and just plain wrong. In much of the Democratic Party, it's now fashionable to say that America is racist. That is a lie. America is not a racist country. This is personal for me. I am the proud daughter of Indian immigrants. They came to America and settled in a small southern town. My father wore a turban. My mother wore a sari. I was a brown girl in a black and white world. We faced discrimination and hardship, but my parents never gave in to grievance and hate. My mom built a successful business. My dad taught 30 years at a historically black college, and the people of South Carolina chose me as their first minority and first female governor. America is a story that's a work in progress. Now is the time to build on that progress and make America even freer, fairer, and better for everyone. That's why it's so tragic to see so much of the Democratic Party turning a blind eye towards riots and rage. The American people know we can do better. And of course we value and respect every black life. The black cops who've been shot in the line of duty, they matter. The black small business owners who've watched their life's work go up in flames, they matter. The black kids who've been gunned down on the playground, their lives matter too. And their lives are being ruined and stolen by the violence on our streets. It doesn't have to be like this. It wasn't like this in South Carolina 5 years ago. Our state came face to face with evil. A white supremacist walked into Mother Emanuel Church during Bible study. 12 African Americans pulled up a chair and prayed with him for an hour. Then he began to shoot. After that horrific tragedy, we didn't turn against each other. We came together, black and white, Democrat and Republican. Together, we made the hard choices needed to heal and removed a divisive symbol peacefully and respectfully. What happened then should give us hope now. America isn't perfect, but the principles we hold dear are perfect. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that even on our worst day, we are blessed to live in America. It's time to keep that blessing alive for the next generation. This president and this party are committed to that noble task. We seek a nation that rises together, not falls apart in anarchy and anger. We know that the only way to overcome America's challenges is to embrace America's strengths. We are striving to reach a brighter future where every child goes to a world-class school chosen by their parents, where every family lives in a safe community with good jobs, where every entrepreneur has the freedom to achieve and inspire, where every believer can worship without fear and every life is protected, where every girl and boy, every woman and man of every race and religion has the best shot at the best life. In this election, we must choose the only candidate who has and who will continue delivering on that vision. President Trump and Vice President Pence have my support, and America has our promise. We will build on the progress of our past and unlock the promise of our future. That future starts when the American people re-elect President Donald Trump. Thank you, good night, and may God always bless America.
Good evening, America. I'm Donald Trump Jr. We're here tonight to talk about the great American story, to talk about this country we all love, this land of promise and opportunity, of heroes and greatness. Just a few short months ago, we were seeing the American dream become a reality for more of our citizens than ever before. The greatest prolonged economic expansion in American history, the lowest unemployment rate in nearly 50 years, the lowest unemployment rates ever for Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, women, and pretty much every other demographic group. And then, courtesy of the Chinese Communist Party, the virus struck. The president quickly took action and shut down travel from China. Joe Biden and his Democrat allies called my father a racist and a xenophobe for doing it. They put political correctness ahead of the safety and security of the American people. Fortunately, as the virus began to spread, the president acted quickly and ensured ventilators got to hospitals that needed them most. He delivered PPE to our brave frontline workers, and he rallied the mighty American private sector to tackle this new challenge. There's more work to do, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Job gains are outpacing what the so-called experts expected. But Biden's radical left-wing policies would stop our economic recovery cold. He's already talking about shutting the country down again. It's madness. Democrats claim to be for workers, but they've spent the entire pandemic trying to sneak a tax break for millionaires in Democrat states into the COVID relief bill. Then they attacked my father for suspending the payroll tax for middle-class workers. In fact, if you think about it, Joe Biden's entire economic platform seems designed to crush the working man and woman. He supported the worst trade deals in the history of the planet. He voted for the NAFTA nightmare. Down the tubes went our auto industry. He pushed for TPP. Goodbye, manufacturing jobs. Beijing Biden is so weak on China that the intelligence community recently assessed that the Chinese Communist Party favors Biden. They know he'll weaken us both economically and on a world stage. Biden also wants to bring in more illegal immigrants to take jobs from American citizens. His open border policies would drive wages down for Americans at a time when low-income workers were getting real wage increases for the first time in modern history. He's pledged to repeal the Trump tax cuts, which were the biggest in our country. After 8 years of Obama and Biden's slow growth, Trump's policies have been like rocket fuel to the economy, and especially to the middle class. Biden has promised to take that money back out of your pocket and keep it in the swamp. That makes sense, though, considering Joe Biden is basically the Loch Ness Monster of the swamp. For the past half-century, he's been lurking around in there. He sticks his head up every now and then to run for president. Then he disappears and doesn't do much in between. So if you're looking for hope, look to the man who did what the failed Obama-Biden administration never could do and built the greatest economy our country has ever seen. And President Trump will do it again. We will be stronger than ever because when we put our mind to it, there is no obstacle that America can't surmount. Except there's a difference this time. In the past, both parties believed in the goodness of America. We agreed on where we wanted to go. We just disagreed on how to get there. This time, the other party is attacking the very principles on which our nation was founded. Freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the rule of law. Thomas Jefferson famously said, "I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man." Our founders believed there was nothing more important than protecting our God-given right to think for ourselves. Now, the left, they're trying to cancel all of those founders. They don't seem to understand this important principle. In order to improve in the future, we must learn from our past, not erase it. So we're not going to tear down monuments and forget the people who built our great nation. Instead, we will learn from our past so we don't repeat any mistakes. And we will work tirelessly to improve the lives of all Americans. Joe Biden and the radical left are now coming for our freedom of speech. They want to bully us into submission. If they get their way, it will no longer be the silent majority. It will be the silenced majority. This has to stop. Freedom of expression used to be a liberal value, at least before the radical left took over. Now the Republican Party is the home of free speech, the place where anyone from any background can speak their mind, and may the best ideas win. People of faith are under attack. You're not allowed to go to church, but mass chaos in the streets gets a pass. It's almost like this election is shaping up to be church, work, and school versus rioting, looting, and vandalism. Or, in the words of Biden and the Democrats, peaceful protesting. Anarchists have been flooding our streets, and Democrat mayors are ordering the police to stand down. Small businesses across America, many of them minority-owned, are being torched by mobs. The Democrat mayors pretend it's not happening. They actually called it a summer of love. And that brings me to another important principle. Every American must be free to live without fear of violence in your country, in your communities, and in your homes. All men and women are created equal and must be treated equally under the law. That's why we must put an end to racism, and we must ensure that any police officer who abuses their powers is held accountable. What happened to George Floyd is a disgrace, and if you know a police officer, you know they agree with that too. But we cannot lose sight of the fact that our police are American heroes. They deserve our deepest appreciation. Because no matter what the Democrats say, you and I both know when we dial 911, we don't want it going to voicemail. So defunding the police is not an option. Everything starts with safety and security. You can't have anything else without it. You can't focus on building a better future for your children without the peace of mind that they can study safely in their classrooms, play safely in their neighborhoods, and sleep safely in their beds. But safety is only the beginning. Trump's America is a land of opportunity, a place of promise. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family that could afford the best schools and the finest universities. But a great education cannot be the exclusive right of the rich and powerful. It must be accessible to all. And that's why my dad is pro-school choice. That's why he's called education access the civil rights issue, not just of our time, but of all time. It is unacceptable that too many African American and Hispanic American children are stuck in bad schools just because of their zip code. Donald Trump will not stand for it. If Democrats really wanted to help minorities and underserved communities, instead of bowing to big money union bosses, they'd let parents choose what school is best for their kids. They'd limit immigration to protect American workers. They'd support the police who protect our neighborhoods. They'd learn how to negotiate trade deals that prioritize America's interests for a change. They'd end the endless wars and quit sending our young people to solve problems in foreign lands. They'd cut taxes for families and workers. They'd create opportunity zones that drive investment into inner cities. In other words, if Democrats cared for the forgotten men and women of our country, they'd do exactly what President Trump is doing. America is the greatest country on earth, but my father's entire worldview revolves around the idea that we can always do even better. Imagine the life you want to have, one with a great job, a beautiful home, a perfect family. You can have it. Imagine the country you want to live in, one with true equal opportunity, where hard work pays off and justice is served with compassion and without partiality. You can have it. Imagine a world where the evils of communism and radical Islamic terrorism are not given a chance to spread, where heroes are celebrated and the good guys win. You can have it. That is the life. That is the country. That is the world that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are after. And yes, you can have it. Because unlike Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats, our party is open to everyone. It starts by rejecting radicals who want to drag us into the dark and embracing the man who represents a bright and beautiful future for all. It starts by re-electing Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. Thank you, and God bless America.
I'm Catalina Lauf. I work in the political space.
And I'm Madeline Lauf, and I'm the founder of Begin Health, a children's nutritional company.
We grew up in a really small town outside of Chicago.
Our mom's from Guatemala. Our dad's a small business owner from Chicago, and so we brought two different cultures together to create us. A little bit of crazy and
a little bit of fun, I guess. They taught us the values of hard work, liberty, to love this country unapologetically. Our dad is a beekeeper and just had so many different things out in the countryside, and it was just such a sweet,
We
quaint.
grew up selling honey at farmers markets, so my line was, have you ever been stung by a bee? But really, it was teaching us, again, entrepreneurship, small business, self-reliance, and that we're the ones that need to put in the hard work to get what we want.
You know, my mother being from Guatemala, escaping what she had there, growing up in poverty, and coming here to the United States, being able to fulfill her destiny and be somebody that she couldn't there in her home country.
And they really instilled in us the sense of purpose, but also self-accountability, and that we had to strive to do the things that we wanted, and it was up to us to make those things happen.
In America,
You're watching the first night of what is sort of the Republican National Convention. The Republican Party actually convened its convention in Charlotte, North Carolina this morning, did all the business of the convention, and then adjourned. And now the Republican National Committee and the Trump campaign are basically putting on this show tonight in the style of a convention. We have been jumping in and out a little bit, in part because there's been a lot of things that have been said, even by very establishment speakers tonight, that have just been wrong, and we feel like we need to just factually correct some of the record. Again, not to analyze what's happening while it's happening, but for example, Nikki Haley, in her remarks tonight, we all sort of jerked back when she suggested that the threat from North Korea is over.
It's
Nikki
better
Haley's-
than that.
Obama and Biden let North Korea threaten America. President Trump rejected that weakness. North Korea is still threatening America, and there was also the whole love letters.
Well, yeah, I mean, we love each other. I mean, maybe Trump finds strength in love. I'm not sure. But the United States has never had a public posture toward North Korea more wrapped in flowery language of literally love. I mean, that's not an insult. Donald Trump describes them as love letters. And he's been known to show them to people and really finds the personal connection with Kim Jong-un something that is special to him. He's also talked about basically turning the coast of the country into Boca. I mean, we do not project strength when it comes to North Korea.
And the threat, factually, is not over. It's not that North Korea has stopped issuing threats to the United States. They absolutely still are.
And I think you have to remember, too, that Kim Jong-un's father craved a meeting with an American president. No American president has agreed to a face-to-face meeting with either of the Kims except Donald Trump. And so when Nikki Haley said the thing that stood up that Donald Trump has stood up to our enemies, I mean, we could fact check that all night based on other people beyond that. But yeah, I think on North Korea, giving a face-to-face meeting to Kim Jong-un, I'm not sure is standing up.
Nikki Haley, also one of a number of speakers tonight to say that the Republicans and President Trump in particular rejects cancel culture, that nothing should be canceled. The president is currently calling for a boycott of Goodyear tires because they weren't pro-Trump enough from some story that actually an inaccurate story that he saw somewhere on Fox.
And Nikki Haley's, the other lie she told was that Joe Biden is good for ISIS. I mean, Secretary Mattis resigned at a pivotal inflection point for the coalition fighting ISIS over a policy disagreement with Donald Trump. A lot of foreign policy watchers also sort of jumped out when he said Erdogan is good.
He said Erdogan was great to a man who had been held hostage in Turkey because of Erdogan.
Right.
That was weird.
And again, Donald Trump displayed epic weakness with Erdogan when he allowed the slaughter of the Kurds, our great allies there.
Well, also just, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, not to say that there were Erdogan's forces that, brutalized people in our own country in D.C. I mean, everything's gone into the memory hole, but that was, I think, in his first year in office.
So, as we're all watching together, South Carolina's U.S. Senator Tim Scott is going to be the final headline speaker of the night. Let's go to him now.
Good evening. I'm Senator Tim Scott from the great state of South Carolina. To all of you tuning in and participating in the political process, God bless you. This isn't how I picture tonight, but our country is experiencing something none of us envisioned. From a global pandemic to the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, 2020 has tested our nation in ways we haven't seen for decades. But regardless of the challenges presented to us, every 4 years, Americans come together to vote, to share stories of what makes our nation strong and the lessons we have learned that can strengthen it for further generations. Because while this election is between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, it is not solely about Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It's about the promise of America. It's about you and me, our challenges and heartbreaks, hopes and dreams. It's about how we respond when tackling critical issues like police reform, when Democrats called our work a token effort and walked out of the room during negotiations because they wanted the issue more than they wanted a solution. Do we want a society that breeds success or a culture that cancels everything it even slightly disagrees with? I know where I stand because, you see, I am living my mother's American dream. My parents divorced when I was 7 years old, and we moved in with my grandparents into a 2-bedroom home with me, my mom, and my brother sharing a room and one bed. My mom worked 16 hours a day to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. She knew that if we could find the opportunity, bigger things would come. I thought I had to use football to succeed in life, and my focus on academics faded away. My freshman year, I failed out. I failed 4 subjects: Spanish, English, world geography, and even civics. Trust me, though, after 7 years in the Senate, I know I'm not the only one in Congress who failed civics. But even while I was failing the 9th grade, my mother always said to me, "Timmy, if you would just shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll be among the stars." She never lost faith in me, even when I lost faith in myself. Because of her encouragement, I went to summer school and caught up. The next year, I met my mentor, John Moniz, a Chick-fil-A operator. John saw something in me that I could not see in myself and started teaching me valuable life lessons. Like having a job would be a good thing, but creating jobs would be even better. That having an income could change my lifestyle, but creating a profit could change my community. He planted the seeds of what would become Opportunity Zones. This initiative that the president and I worked together on is now bringing more than $75 billion of private sector investment into distressed communities. I took those lessons to heart and started putting the pieces of my life back together. I realized a quality education is the closest thing to magic in America. That's why I fight to this day for school choice, to make sure every child in every neighborhood has a quality education. I don't care if it's a public, private, charter, virtual, or a homeschool. When a parent has a choice, their kid has a better chance. And the president has fought alongside me on that. Later in life, I started my own small business. That's why I know it is critical for us to have a tax code that encourages growth. We actually saw revenues to the Treasury increase after we lowered taxes in 2017. Rest assured, the Democrats do not want you to know that. After starting my small business and spending some time in local government, I decided to run for Congress in 2010. The district is based in Charleston, South Carolina, where the Civil War started, against a son of our legendary Senator, Strom Thurmond. You may be asking yourself, how does a poor black kid from a single-parent household run and win in a race crowded with Republicans against a Thurman? Because of the evolution of the Southern heart. In an overwhelmingly white district, the voters judged me not on the color of my skin, but on the content of my character. We live in a world that only wants you to believe in the bad news, racially, economically, and culturally polarizing news. The truth is, our nation's arc always bends back towards fairness. We are not fully where we want to be, but I thank God Almighty, we are not where we used to be. We are always striving to be better. When we stumble, and we will, we pick ourselves back up and try again. We don't give in to cancel culture or the radical and factually baseless belief that things are worse today than in the 1860s or the 1960s. We have work to do, but I believe in the goodness of America, the promise that all men and all women are created equal. And if you're watching tonight, I'm betting you do too. Over the past 4 years, we have made tremendous progress towards that promise. President Trump built the most inclusive economy ever. 7 million jobs created pre-COVID-19, and 2/3 of them went to women, African Americans, and Hispanics. The first new major effort to tackle poverty in a generation, opportunity zones. We put hard-earned tax dollars back in people's pockets by cutting their taxes, especially for single-parent households like the one I grew up in, cutting single mothers' taxes 70% on average. President Trump supported these tax cuts for those single moms and other working families and signed these policies into law, and our nation is better off for it. So, I'm going to ask you, the American people, not to simply look at what the candidates say, but to look back at what they've done. This election is about your future, and it is critical to paint a full picture of the records of Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden said if a black man didn't vote for him, he wasn't truly black. Joe Biden said black people are a monolithic community. It was Joe Biden who said poor kids can be just as smart as white kids. And while his words are one thing, his actions take it to a whole new level. In 1994, Biden led the charge on a crime bill that put millions of black Americans behind bars. President Trump's criminal justice reform law fixed many of the disparities Biden created and made our system more fair and just for all Americans. Joe Biden also failed our nation's historically black colleges and universities, heaping blame on them as they fought to ensure our young folks had access to higher education. Once again, to clean up Joe Biden's mess, President Trump signed into law historically high funding for HBCUs, as well as a bill to give them permanent funding for the first time ever. And now Joe Biden wants to come for your pocketbooks. Unless, of course, you're a blue state millionaire. I'm serious. That's one of their solutions for the pandemic. They want to take more money from your pocket and give it to Manhattan elites and Hollywood moguls so they get a tax break. Republicans, however, passed President Trump's once-in-a-generation tax reform bill that lowered taxes for single moms, working families, and those in need. So when it comes to what Joe Biden says he'll do, look at his actions. Look at his policies. Look at what he already did and what he didn't do while he's been in Washington for 47 years. Ladies and gentlemen, people don't always see those failures because they think we're having a policy debate on two sides of an issue. That is not what is happening. Our side is working on policy, while Joe Biden's radical Democrats are trying to permanently transform what it means to be an American. Make no mistake, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want a cultural revolution, a fundamentally different America. If we let them, they will turn our country into a socialist utopia. And history has taught us that path only leads to pain and misery, especially for hardworking people hoping to rise. Instead, we must focus on the promise of the American journey. I know that journey well. My grandfather's 99th birthday would have been tomorrow. Growing up, he had to cross the street if a white person was coming. He suffered the indignity of being forced out of school as a third grader to pick cotton, and he never learned to read or write. Yet, he lived long enough to see his grandson become the first African American to be elected to both the United States House and the United States Senate in the history of this country. Our family went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime. And that's why I believe the next American century can be better than the last. There are millions of families just like mine all across this nation, full of potential, seeking to live the American dream. And I'm here tonight to tell you that supporting the Republican ticket gives you the best chance of making that dream a reality. God bless you. And Father, please continue blessing the United States of America. God bless.
South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott wrapping up the first night of this Republican National Convention. Brian Williams here with you, and good evening once again. A new week brings the telecast or telethon, perhaps, from another political party. As we welcome you to a special 2-hour edition of the 11th hour, let's begin with what we have just witnessed. And let's begin with our friends remaining with us in our New York studios to react what we've just seen. Rachel Maddow, Nicole Wallace, Joy Reid. Rachel, you first.
Oh, Brian, don't do this to me. No, listen, this is, in some ways, actually, if you looked at this on paper, if you kind of looked at this as a television production, it's more similar to the Democratic event from last week than we thought. For example, there were very few live events, even though the Republicans have produced this from a central hub, so everybody's standing at the same podium, speaking from the same place. Almost everything that you just saw tonight, with a few exceptions, was recorded basically live to tape, where they had people pre-record their speeches and they rolled them in a way that made people think they were live. Most of them were not live. It is distracting to have a lot of false information broadcast. I think it's distracting to us as broadcasters doing this because we feel a responsibility to correct stuff, and it is awkward to have to interrupt, and it makes us make hard decisions about what we're not showing so that we can clean some stuff up that was otherwise said that people might otherwise believe is factually true. I will just say, personally, I feel like there's no clean, easy, and perfect way to do it, but we do our best, and my priority, at least, is to make sure that we broadcast as little false medical information as possible, and we had a bunch of that tonight around COVID, not only lying about the president's record. I don't know what Don Jr. meant when he said the president has delivered PP&E to our brave frontline workers. It's just PPE, but that didn't get delivered in a hurry. The president making some false claims about therapeutics and immunity and other things about COVID that just makes me, it's really bad on a night with this many people watching to still be broadcasting false information to a country where we've lost 176,000 Americans already. And the last thing we need is more lies and misinformation about what this virus is, how it works, and how you can or can't protect yourself from it. So I feel that acutely, but technically they did pull it off.
You know, Brian, what's...
Joy Reid. Go ahead, Nicole. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Nicole.
No, you go.
No, you go.
You go.
You first.
All I was going to add was, first of all, you know, Rachel, we didn't know exactly where the lies would come, and so it is sort of this on-the-fly thing. But for me, my political brain, why do they lie? And this gets back to something I said last week. Why the lies and why the sugarcoating over the pandemic? Because if they really thought that 177,000 Americans was the best America could do, there wouldn't be all these distractions. They would have just gone to the heart of it. And this whole night would have been COVID night. If they really thought that they could run on their response to the pandemic, and again, since we were anchoring the hour together, Brian, every day, as the numbers ticked up in alarming and heartbreaking ways, the case that the president has to make to his base, every single one of them needs to still be alive and vote for him, is this was the best we could do. Nobody thinks that this was the best we could do. Not one person. So it's not just that they lied and that it was awkward and we had to pull out and we had to get Dr. Gupta, you know, out of whatever he was doing, saving a life or something. It's why the lies. And the lies are there because nobody thinks that the best that America can do is 177,000 dead people.
Yeah, except that, you know, the latest polling showing that while like 10% of Democrats say they think it's acceptable, like maybe not the best we could do, but you have 67% of Republicans in the latest polling saying they think it's acceptable that 180,000 people are dead, a number that I choke on, and I'm sure we all do, trying to get it out every night. I mean, Nicole, when you do the piece at the end where you talk about the people who died, I literally have to, you know, not have my, you know, I want to cry and listen to it. It's so hard to see those faces. And 180,000, 67% of Republicans think that that's acceptable. That shocks me in a way that I can't get over. And I've known this piece of data for 24 hours. I'm not over it. But the why they lie thing, I mean, why say that Donald Trump saved HBCUs? That isn't true. I mean, I was literally Googling it on my phone. You can find it in like 2 seconds. It just isn't true. But this was it's not a convention. I'm so glad that Rachel pointed that out at the beginning because it made it make so much sense what I saw this morning.
It's a pageant about a convention.
It was a pageant about a convention, but it was also a pageant about a convention versus a candidate who doesn't exist. They could have done this. They should have produced this like 2 months ago because it doesn't matter who the Democrat is because this person is a communist who wants to destroy the Bible and burn it, who wants to, I guess, make us into Cuba, who is not standing up to our enemies, and somehow Donald Trump is.
Donald Trump Jr. warned that whoever this person is will also destroy the rule of law.
Would destroy the rule of law and look at his issues.
Which is amazing coming from...
It's bizarre. And then, you know, they ended with the least unpleasant person currently working in Republican politics, Tim Scott, who's a nice enough guy. But nothing they're saying about what the reality of Trumpism is true. Nikki Haley piecing through which Black Lives Matter. Thanks, Nikki. I really needed to know which of our lives matter. And I really appreciate you pointing out that it's everyone except people killed by police. Appreciated that. Herschel Walker, who touts Donald Trump's being involved in the USFL. Donald Trump destroyed the USFL. Okay, take it from an old fanatical football fan as a kid. Donald Trump destroyed the USFL. Like, everyone who knows about the USFL's history knows that. So everything that they portrayed was a pageant about things that are just a made-up reality. And as a pageant, it didn't even have the vibrancy that you saw last week. We just saw people just pounding at that same podium, people who seemed quite angry when they're in power. I didn't get it. I have to be honest. I'm just saying, as television, I didn't.
But the anger piece is interesting because there was a reason to be angry 4 years ago. They were running really against the elites in both sides. Donald Trump had vanquished 16 Republicans, most of them from the establishment. Yeah. And then he was out to vanquish, Hillary Clinton from a dynastic American political family. And so the anger 4 years ago added up. There is no rationale for the anger now. He's in charge. Right. So whatever the indictment is of life in America today, this is Donald Trump's America today. He's the boss. He's in charge. So the anger didn't have a thread. I think that if you can sort of pull away from that, which doesn't add up to us, and again, we were not the audience. No. Let's just be frank. We're just trying to understand what it means about how they see the race. What it means about how they see the race is that they do not have their base locked up. That's why some of those speakers.
Oh, that's an interesting point. That this wasn't targeted toward people who aren't already Trump fans? It's just to please people who already like Trump?
I think this, and listen, they may evolve. The week may, Brian, as we've grown accustomed to doing. There may be more
adjustments,
mystery baskets as the week goes on. But tonight was about, I mean, the charming older Cuban gentleman. I mean, he's there. And it's almost like a Republican convention in the 80s, right? I mean, if you don't have that generation's Cuban vote in Florida locked up today, you're worried about Florida and the older Cuban vote. I mean, just your convention program reveals where you think the race is today, and where I saw them feeling like the race is that they don't have the Trump 2016 coalition locked up yet.
Can I just say the one thing, Brian, that in that speech that Nicole, that you're talking about, that very emotional speech from the Cuban-American man from Florida talking about his upbringing, when he said that he once heard Fidel Castro asked if he was a communist, and he said, no, I'm a Roman Catholic. He was saying, in effect, Joe Biden tells you he's a Roman Catholic. We all know what that means. Like, as a Catholic, I have to say, like, that for me was a little bit of a kind of, like, I'm not sure I can take this kind of a moment. Actually, you could just say you're a Roman Catholic, and it could mean you're Roman Catholic. Doesn't mean you're actually Fidel Castro and secretly trying to hide your communism. But that was...
I had thought we litigated this in 1960.
Yeah.
And Brian, can we talk for a second about the McCloskeys? Can we just have a moment about that? I mean, that was one of the strangest choices I've seen made in a political convention. They're facing charges for menacing, for waving guns at peaceful protesters who were marching for Black Lives Matter against the killing of Black bodies by police. And so they're sort of hailed and given this honorific, you know, to stand there and talk about the Biden campaign is to eliminate the suburbs. And that was strange. I'm really glad we had Tremaine Lee to come on and talk about, I mean, the suburb they live in has a covenant, a restrictive covenant in it. It's behind iron gates. They have a private road that, you know, 30 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to walk in that street because it's a private road, and Black people, you know, it's very difficult to even be allowed to buy a home in that community. So when they're saying Biden is going to eliminate the suburbs, what does that even mean? You know, it was a strange messaging. And on the lies thing again, lying about little things. Why pretend that Ronna Romney McDaniel is a housewife? She's just an ordinary housewife.
She is the most powerful Republican woman not in office. And this gets into a whole sort of hornet's nest